Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. Hey guys, we're your hosts, Em and Jay, and today we want to revisit Catra's character, a major antagonist of She-Ra and the Princesses of Power. This is the second part on our series on her. The first part will be linked in the card in the description. In that video we discuss Catra's childhood, the circumstances around her development, and her decision to stay in the Horde despite it being a damaging environment. She's meant to be a character who starts out as a villain but eventually finds redemption and becomes a hero, which is honestly one of my favorite tropes, but she stays a villain for 4 out of the 5 seasons, and they make it really obvious she's on the wrong path, but she keeps crossing the line over and over again, to the point where by the time she does finally start to turn around, it ends up feeling pretty rushed. If Catra was meant to eventually become a hero, and be half of the endgame ship, maybe they could have set it up better, because I don't think it was as impactful as they intended it to be, especially when dealing with pretty sensitive subjects like abuse. Catra's goal is to climb the ranks of the Horde and eventually take it over. From there, she'll continue the war and eventually take over the world, as well as bring Adora back to the Horde and rule the Horde together. She's an ambitious person, and she wants revenge on the Horde, especially Shadow Weaver. She does this by gaining favor with Hordak and taking Shadow Weaver's position, and from there the plan is to continue to climb. But those plans start to go south pretty quickly. She starts losing favor with Hordak almost immediately after Shadow Weaver is imprisoned. She might have a higher position now, but the Horde is still a toxic, abusive environment, and things get really extreme since Hordak tries to kill her 3 times. It's really disturbing. We made a video about Hordak that goes into more information about this, so you can watch it if you'd like more context, but basically he starts favoring Entrapta over Catra because they can bond over science and be a ship. Ironically, Catra's the one who manipulated Entrapta into joining the Horde, and now this has become a problem for her. But things get even worse when Shadow Weaver is able to escape by manipulating Catra, so Hordak sends her to the Crimson Waste, which is basically a death sentence, so nothing in the Horde has really worked out for her, despite how hard she's working for it. So Catra goes off to the Crimson Waste, but finds that it's not at all what they were expecting. Instead of it being a desolate wasteland with no hope of survival, it's actually an outpost for outlaws and bandits, and Catra's actually able to thrive here. She's able to gain a posse relatively quickly, and then becomes the leader of a band of outlaws once she defeats their original leader, Tongue Lasher, gaining a massive amount of respect for the people there and control of territory. Scorpia came along with her even though she didn't have to. Scorpia is another force captain in the Horde, and she took a liking to Catra, but Catra believes that love and friendship are limited, which we saw throughout her childhood, so she isn't willing to build any relationships outside of Adora and Shadow Weaver, and has mostly been using Scorpia to accomplish her goals, although she has been starting to open up on missions, and especially now in the Crimson Waste. She's able to enjoy a position of power, everyone respects and fears her, and she's even able to attend a party for the first time in her life. Seems like a pretty ideal situation for her, but she's still insisting on going back to the Horde and giving all of this up.
When I bring this back to the Fright Zone, Hordak will see me for what I'm worth and I'll be back on top. Let's stay here. Forget Hordak, forget Adora, forget all of them. We could rule the Crimson Waste together. Just the 2 of us.
The thing is, she's always imagined herself ruling with Adora, not Scorpia, and she still wants Hordak to acknowledge her worth, despite the fact that he's tried to kill her multiple times. Often when people find themselves in abusive situations, it's very difficult to escape it. Sometimes they just don't have the option, and if they do, they can be afraid to leave, or they're still looking for the approval of their abusers like Catra is, among other reasons. And I was hoping that was what they were addressing with this situation. Catra has been given multiple lifelines to escape the Horde by Adora and Scorpia, and frankly she could just leave on her own too. She really has no reason to stay there, it's just that she still wants approval from Hordak, along with revenge on Adora for her supposed betrayal, and Shadow Weaver for actually abusing her. The only one who can really liberate Catra from this situation is Catra herself, but people can't change unless they want to, and right now she doesn't want to think about a life outside of the Horde with Scorpia. She wants to gloat and rub it in Adora's face after she was captured by them. During the interrogation, Adora reveals that Shadow Weaver is in Bright Moon because after she escaped from the Horde, she went after Adora herself, because of course she did. Catra takes this very personally, seeing it as Shadow Weaver choosing Adora over her, especially after Shadow Weaver had just manipulated her, so she goes back to Scorpia and demands that they return to the Fright Zone.
Shadow Weaver left me. For you. All of this happened because of you.
She's blaming Adora for Shadow Weaver's garbage actions. Shadow Weaver is an obsessive and abusive stalker, and Adora is her victim, and I was hoping that they would take the story in the direction where she would eventually come to realize that her anger is misplaced and that Adora is not her enemy. But that's not what ends up happening. Instead, she views Adora as in competition with her for Shadow Weaver's affection, along with her position in the Horde, despite making it clear she doesn't want to be used by either of them anymore. But Catra never listens to Adora, or attempts to understand her, just demands that she do what she wants. Anyway, the planet they're on is stuck in a pocket dimension, and the previous She-Ra, Mara, is the one who trapped them there, in an attempt to protect them from the war outside. She also sabotaged their ability to create portals so no one can leave or enter the pocket dimension. However, Catra and the rest of the Horde have decided to open a portal in order to contact their leader, Horde Prime, to send the Armada to them. Adora tries to warn her that Mara's actions cause that to be impossible, and doing so would be disastrous, but Catra dismisses the warnings. Adora is able to convince Entrapta though, who is also skeptical but does more research on her own, and ultimately realizes that Adora is right. When Catra comes and demands to activate the portal, Entrapta refuses. She tries to explain the gravity of the situation, but when she brings up the fact that Adora was right, Catra basically flies off the handle.
Adora was right! Adora is right. Adora gets everything she wants. But not this time. This time, I am going to win. I don't care what it takes. We are opening that portal now!
Here we can see her competition with Adora has caused her to lose sight of reality, to the point where she cares more about her imaginary scoreboard than she does about the fact that reality could end up being completely destroyed. So she stabs Entrapta in the back when she keeps insisting on shutting down the portal, and even has her banished to Beast Island, which is basically condemning her to death, and threatens to send Scorpia there too if she doesn't keep her mouth shut, after she protests her treatment of Entrapta. So Catra activates the machine, but instead of opening a portal, it causes reality to collapse in on itself, exactly what Adora warned would happen. At first, this results in a dreamlike state where everything Catra ever wanted comes true. They don't go into detail about exactly what's going on, but it's implied that since she's the one who activated the machine, she gets to live out her fantasy, at least for as long as it takes for reality to officially collapse. But Adora's back in the Horde, Shadow Weaver is actually kind to them, and they're back on track to gain ground in the Horde. So it appears like Catra actually doesn't mind being second, as long as Adora is with her, but it's not to uplift Adora, but instead keep her where Catra wants her to be. If Adora has a problem with attacking civilians, colonizing nations, and taking over the world, that's just too bad. All that matters is that Catra is okay with it. But then Adora starts to notice that hallways and other things go missing, and starts having flashbacks to the original timeline, and eventually the destruction can't be ignored anymore. As things unravel, Adora desperately tries to get Catra to wake up and see the truth for what it is, and I think this would have been the perfect moment for her to wake up and realize what's really going on, and start her path towards redemption. Now faced with the consequences of her actions, she could take a step back and reflect on everything that got her to this point, but unfortunately that's not what happens. Instead she doubles down, again, hard.
Catra, look what's happening! You're going to destroy everything! I don't care! I won't let you win. I'd rather see the whole world end than let that happen.
I actually think that the way this is written, it makes for a very good villain arc. Adora has given Catra chance after chance after chance, and each time Catra just keeps doubling down, to the point where she no longer cares about the world, and would rather see it be destroyed than let Adora win, which is something that she's completely made up in her own mind. She tries to drag herself and Adora into the void, in a murder-suicide attempt. Adora's cries and tears still don't mean anything to her. They never really have. Thankfully, Adora manages to pull away from her, but she's still trying to give Catra a chance by reaching back out for her, which Catra again rejects and allows herself to fall into the void. She's completely out of touch with reality, and as if all of this wasn't bad enough, she then drags whatever is left of herself out of the void to go after Adora again. She beats her, guilts her, shames shames her and blames her for really doing nothing wrong. All Adora ever did was try to remove herself from a toxic situation, and Catra took that personally, despite the fact that Adora tried over and over again to reach out to her and explain that was never the case. It just never gets through to Catra. Adora finally stands up for herself, saying that none of this was her fault, and Catra's the one who made her choices, and now she has to live with them. And it culminates with Adora punching Catra in the face. It's actually a really good moment. Adora is sad that it came to this, but it also had to be done. And she finally understands that if Catra doesn't want to change, she's not going to, no matter how many chances she gives her, or how much she begs or cries. Unfortunately, this realization came too late, as the world is doomed, and there's nothing Adora can do at this point. Catra ends up fading away into the void, and Adora accepts her fate. Luckily, Angela swoops in at the last minute, but she's forced to sacrifice herself. We did a whole video about how tragic Angela's character is, so if you're interested you can go check it out. Catra's actions led to the destruction of the world, and Angela being forced to sacrifice herself to save it all. The weird thing is this feels like the end of Catra's story arc, but there's 2 more seasons, and none of this is ever addressed. Instead, there's a whole other season of Catra still being obsessed with Adora and trying to take over the world, cementing her place in the Horde, and then in the last season they finally force her onto the villain redemption arc, but it comes way too late. If this was always the end goal for her character, they shouldn't have had her destroy the world, which isn't something she can come back from, and instead started her redemption arc around this time. It would have been much more effective. I do think this whole situation is a good example of the cycle of abuse, where Catra was an abuse victim thanks to Shadow Weaver, but is now going out of her way to abuse Adora. It's a very tragic cycle, but one I think Catra could have overcome. I just don't think they handled it well in the series. But after Angela's sacrifice resets the world, Adora is able to destroy the portal machine. This moment is significant because Adora is reiterating the fact that she's now done with Catra. She gave her so many chances and stuck her neck out for her, only to be betrayed. And at first Catra looks intimidated by it, but then her look hardens, which is another way for her to double down. They both made their choices and Adora's not going to be her punching bag anymore. I do think Catra's actions went too far in this finale. I understand wanting to have a happy ending, that's not the problem, but especially if they wanted to have her and Adora end up together in the end, why have her be so toxic to the point where she's irredeemable? She literally lets the world die just to spite Adora. That's not a healthy kind of love, and probably not one that should be promoted, especially to children. I think this could have worked if they just hadn't made it go so far, but that's our opinion. What do you guys think? How do you feel about Catra's actions in the season 3 finale? Let us know in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching, everybody. We really appreciate it. Before we go, we want to give a shout out to our members: Stutania, Tyrant Carnivore, Adam K, Shiny Orc Boy, The Rabbit Mancer, General Bolivar, Death Charge Media, Samaru163, Gabby Hime, Sandy Martin, Verdant Range, Butcher7 Actual, Dash Hound, JVR, Hussyman42, Nixel, Eric Griffin, Phantom of the Night, Phil C, Taylor Ramirez, Caleb Nelson, Shrike Z, Bandito Bane, Xsona X, and Hunter Rose. Thank you all so much for your support. If you'd like to become a member, you can hit the join button next to the subscribe button. We also have Buy Me Coffee if you want to support us that way. And if you enjoyed this video and want to see more, you can leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and that's free. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye everyone. Bye guys.